In a small village surrounded by dusty hills and stubborn winds, there lived an old man named Juma. People called him strange, some called him mad, a few in whispers called him a genius, but no one really knew. Juma lived alone in a mud brick house at the edge of the village. His compound was filled with odd creations, wooden wheels that spun without touching the ground, bottles hanging from trees that hummed when the wind blew, and a large metal structure that looked like a broken bird stretching its wings towards the sky. Children would sneak close to his fence and giggle. "He talks to the machines," they would say. And it was true. Juma did talk to the machines, but not because he was crazy, but because he listened. Long before his beard turned white and his back bent like a question mark, Juma had been a poor boy with curious eyes. He grew up in a family that struggled to eat. School was a privilege they could barely afford, yet Juma loved it. He would take apart broken radios. He would fix old lanterns. He once repaired the village well using nothing but wire and stubbornness. But when he was 16, something happened. He failed a national exam, not by a little, by a lot. His teachers were disappointed. His father was silent. His friends moved on to better schools, while he stayed behind, carrying the heavy weight of not good enough. That night, he almost gave up on learning. But as he lay outside, staring at the stars, he asked himself one question. What if failure is not proof that I am useless, but proof that I am not finished? That question saved his life. Juma never went to a famous university. He never wore a graduation gown. He learned from books he borrowed and returned late. He learned from broken machines. He learned from watching birds glide and water flow. While others chased certificates, he chased understanding. He studied how wind moved between hills. He studied how the sun heated iron. He studied how water found its way through a stone. Years passed. People forgot the boy who failed, but Juma was building something. Then came the drought. Crops dried up. Wells sank lower. The wind blew endlessly, but it carried no rain. The village suffered. Leaders met. Prayers were said. Blame was thrown around like dust. And in the middle of it all, old Juma quietly worked in his compound. One morning, villagers woke to a strange sight. The broken bird in Juma's yard was spinning. Its metal wings caught the wind and turned a system of gears he had built by hand. Those gears pulled water from deep underground and stored it in raised tanks. By evening, water flowed into a public tap outside his fence. At first, people were suspicious. Then they were thirsty. Within days, the entire village was drawing water from Juma's invention. The same man they had laughed at, the same boy who had failed. A young teacher named Amina visited him one afternoon. "Baba Juma," she said respectfully. "How did you do this? Where did you study engineering?" Juma chuckled, his eyes soft. "I studied the wind," he replied. She frowned. "No, I mean which school?" He pointed to the hills. "That one." He pointed to the sky. "That one." Then he looked at her seriously. "Genius is not about knowing everything. It's about refusing to stop asking why." He explained how he had failed many times building the wind machine. Wings that snapped, gears that jammed, But every failure, he said, whispered instructions. Amina wrote down his words. Years later, she would repeat them to her students. One season, a violent storm struck the village. Roofs were torn off. Trees were uprooted. Juma's wind machine broke apart under the force of the storm. Villagers rushed to check on him. They found him sitting calmly beside the wreckage. "Aren't you hungry?" one man asked. "Your greatest invention is destroyed." Juma smiled. "If it could break, it was not yet perfect," he said. The next morning, even at his old age, he began rebuilding stronger, smarter, and better. That was when the village truly understood his genius was not in his machines. It was in his resilience. When Juma grew very old, he could no longer stand for long hours. His hands trembled, his steps slowed, but his mind remained sharp as sunrise. Children now gathered not to mock, but to learn. One evening, as the sun painted the hills gold, a little boy asked him, "Baba Juma, how do I become a genius like you?" Juma looked at him for a long time. "First," he said gently, "stop trying to become a genius." The children laughed. He continued, "Become curious, become patient, become brave enough to fail in front of others. Read more than you speak, listen more than you argue. And when life says you are finished, answer it with, I am still learning." He paused, then added, "And never let people decide your worth before your work is complete." When Juma eventually passed away, the village did not just bury an old man. They buried a library of experience, a workshop of wisdom, a heart that refused to quit. But his wind machines still spun, his water still flowed, and his lessons still echoed. The boy who failed an exam became the man who saved a village, not because he was born different, but because he chose not to stop. Genius is not loud. It does not always wear suits. It does not always pass exams. Sometimes it lives in a small house at the edge of the village. Sometimes it fails. Sometimes